The Goat House is back with surprise NFL trade candidates that you need to watch. We'll talk about landing spots and value as well. I didn't just pick out random players. There's a reason these players could actually get traded. We'll break it all down in the video. Let's get started. Rams star running back Kyren Williams, potentially a name to watch. Williams wanted an extension going into the offseason. The Rams were actually trying to work towards one. Now, at the same time, I think a lot of you out there agree. You kind of get the feeling that the Rams aren't a team probably not a team that would dish out a ton of money or overpay a running back, even though Williams is very good. He's very valuable to him. And I feel like it's kind of being proven. Fast forward to now, no extension. You get to the draft, no extension, and they draft Auburn running back Jarquez Hunter. Now, that doesn't mean, they're replacing Williams. He's more of a depth running back right now. But for them to draft a running back, it's kind of interesting. And you've kind of factor in the Rams are one of those offenses that kind of just roll with Kyren Williams. They don't use a collection of backs. They drafted Blake Corum last year, and they barely even used him, right? So they're not a rotation type offense with these running backs. So for them to add another draft pick in a loaded running back class, it kind of feels like they might be preparing for life without Kyren Williams, and it may not be this offseason. It may be for next year, right? But again, they have Corum as well, and there's still no extension. It almost feels like the Rams at this point are like, it's going to have to be for the right price, or we're not doing it. We're not dying to do it. That's kind of what you get the feeling, with this situation right now. So that, if that puts them possibly on the trading block, if they just cannot reach a deal, and there's some other teams that could use a running back. What is his value? This is a stud running back, touchdown machine, still very young. You'd say his talent maybe is pushing second round, but again, needs an extension, probably pretty pricey. He doesn't have any eye-popping traits. He's kind of a guy that just gets the job done. Sometimes you go, how does he have the contact balance that he has? So maybe he's not for every single team because he doesn't have those eye-popping traits when it comes to physical traits or athletic traits. So, and you got to give him a big extension. So I don't think teams are throwing a second-round pick. There might not even be teams throwing a third-round pick because maybe they just don't love him. Maybe they feel like they could find someone else in the future that's better. So I'd say around a third-round pick, but I do think he's very valuable to the Rams. And again, I'm not saying in this video, I'm not saying these guys get traded. There's a reason they could get traded, and the Rams may be better off keeping them. We'll see. They have other young backs that could step up. Favorite fit? I went with the Washington Commanders. I could see him in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. They're looking for another back. I think they're fine the way they are. Brian Robinson Jr., maybe a little underwhelming last year, but solid. Austin Eckler. I think Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt could be a sneaky good pick in the 7th round. And they have a couple other guys like Rodriguez that could play as well. But I could see him as a fit, and it would be an upgrade. The Bears are the most mentioned team when it comes to adding another running back. They probably need a running back more than anyone right now. It could happen. I just don't see him as a Ben Johnson type running back. Look at what he had with Gibbs and Montgomery. You got with Gibbs elite explosive traits, elite explosive ability. Montgomery like elite power or close to. And then what Ben Johnson tried to draft, they tried to trade up for Ashton Genty, elite power. There's rumors they tried to trade up for in the 2nd round for Travion Henderson. Elite explosiveness and speed, home run ability. Kyren Williams really doesn't have all that, but he is very good. I just don't really get the feeling he's a Ben Johnson back. And the Broncos could be looking for another one, but I think it's kind of limited who would be interested in Kyren Williams unless it's like a 4th round pick or something, just because you have to pay him a lot of money and he's not oozing the traits that coaches, teams overvalue sometimes. Actually, I felt like the Commanders were the right team. So because no contract extension yet, one to watch, but maybe he could be one more to watch going elsewhere after this contract. It's definitely a possibility too. Another running back, Seahawks back, Kenneth Walker, one to watch. He's been rumored in trade scenarios, so I thought I'd throw him in this video. I think Kyren Williams a little more likely maybe to get traded right now just because it's been obvious they've worked towards an extension and it hasn't happened. Where Walker, yes, he's on an expiring deal, much like Kyren Williams, and may need a new deal, but I don't think he's requesting one, and I don't think the Seahawks are working towards one. But at the same time, new staff in there. They have Charbonnet, who's solid. They drafted Damian Martinez. That could end up being a steal. He's a stud back. And they have options, so they could actually flip him for a pick, but they definitely could use him. An interesting one. Again, there's been some rumors about him and the Bears. It's just been rumors. There's been nothing serious, but you can kind of make sense of it. Expiring deal, new staff. They have other options. Could they move him? Talent-wise, you would definitely think Kenneth Walker, like skill-wise, for sure more skill than compensation of a fourth-round pick. But expiring deal, he does have durability concerns, and he's an interesting back. Like if you watch, he's super explosive, super talented, and if you watch like the highlights, like they're as good as anyone. Well, maybe they're not on Saquon Barkley's level, but in Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, but maybe the tier right after that, he is up there. But he's got to be a little more consistent. I feel like he runs as if every run needs to be a home run, explosive runs. Maybe he bounce runs outside too much, doesn't always hit the hole. But, man, he's got some serious talent. You know, athleticism, power combo is pretty rare. But needs to stay healthy, needs to stay more consistent. Expiring deal. Would he be a rental for an acquiring team? Would they need to give him a new deal? So that drops the value. So I'd say the value is a third or a fourth-round pick. If it's a fourth-round pick, if the Seahawks are better off just keeping him. So maybe that's the compensation is what stops this deal from happening. He would make sense as a Bears running back to me. Like the Bears are the number one team, most likely looking for a back. The draft really didn't work out how they wanted it to. They could use someone else. It just feels like maybe they stay away because of the durability concerns. Maybe depending on what the cost is, what the Seahawks are asking for. Maybe that'd be the reason, all the above, why they stay away. But that makes the most sense as a fit. I could see the Commanders. I could see the Broncos adding him as well. A couple of wild cards, a couple of dark horse teams. I could see the Saints looking for another back to pair Kamara, perhaps. I know they have some other options. They draft Devin Neal, but it feels like this would be the major 1-2 punch with Alvin Kamara. For Kellen Moore, a little bit of a dark horse team. In the Cowboys, already traded for George Pickens. They added multiple running backs, but again, I don't think they want to pay a running back big money, but this would be a Cowboys move. And again, I put them under dark horse on kind of dark horse candidates, but use them as a rent. Like they would get him, upgrade at running back for this year, and just have him as a rental. They don't have to pay him, or maybe he ends up being cheaper. Which is a possibility because I guess the injury history here. So, another interesting running back to watch as a dark horse trade candidate. Speaking of the Bears, how about DJ Moore? I mean, this is a wild card trade candidate, not fully expecting it, but things getting interesting with Chicago when you really look at it because, well, they bring in the new staff. They bring in Ben Johnson. He's going to do things his way. He's going to build his offense. He drafts Luther Burden, big-time draft pick early in the second round. They already have DJ Moore. They already have Rome Odunze. They also, in the first round, drafted Colson Loveland. And we talked about he actually played more of his snaps technically as a receiver, whether it's slot and or outside. Doesn't mean he's going to do that in the NFL. They're probably going to work him in a little bit more in line, even though they have Cole Kmet. But point is, they got all these. It's a good problem to have. They got all these good options, and there's just not enough snaps to go around. That doesn't mean somebody's getting 0 snaps. Not what I'm saying. It's just in terms of receiver 1 and receiver 2. These days, I like to call it 2 receiver 1s. There's going to be 2 receiver 1s and of course, there's going to be times where you use 3 receivers, but that's not a lot, in this system. So there's going to be 2 receiver 1s getting receiver 1 snaps. Somebody is going to get rotation snaps. And the more and more, it's kind of rumors right now. It's nothing for sure, but it just sounds like, Rome Odunze could be that perfect guy for Ben Johnson's offense. They drafted Burden for the slot for a reason. DJ Moore, there's all this talk about you got to block in Ben Johnson's offense to be able to be on the field, and DJ Moore was getting lazy last year, and I know he has it in him to do a lot more than what he did, but could it would make sense for Odunze and Burden to be the guys of the future because those are the upside guys, even though Moore is the most talented right now. And Moore's got an interesting contract. Like, he's a little pricey going forward. The Bears could afford it, but they spent a lot this offseason. They could look to clear it. So could they move forward with those guys in Loveland and Kmet? And, they have Zacchaeus as well. And they can continue to draft. And could they move on from DJ Moore? Now, he comes with a pricey contract. He's a very talented player, though he's not going to be for everyone. I'd say his skill level before last year would say second round, but because he wasn't happy last year, showing frustration, kind of being a little lazy. There's some talk about that. And he has a pricey contract. Doesn't need an extension, but has a pricey contract. I think that drops. I don't think anyone's throwing a second round at him. I think a third round plus maybe something else is possible, maybe even down to a fourth round pick if they're just really looking to shed that space. I don't think that's the case, though. I think the Bears would like to have the collection of really good receivers for Caleb Williams, at least right now, unless they get the right price. So they're going to need the right. Kind of could be what's stopping it here. So I don't think a second round is possible unless it could be if the Bears kind of give something back as well. but third round pick made some sense. Steelers make a lot of sense. So they traded George Pickens, DJ Moore, a much different type of receiver, I think would really fit Arthur Smith's offense, pairing him with DK Metcalf. The Steelers have a load of cap space in the future to be able to afford DJ Moore. They make the most sense by far. The Broncos, is kind of a feeling that they might feel like they're set at receiver. They draft Pat Bryant, not DJ Moore, but they draft him. But I could just kind of like, because Moore could be a Swiss Army knife type guy. He can carry the football, so I could see him in Sean Payton's offense. And the Cardinals could be a sneaky team looking for another receiver. They have a little bit of money to spend, so I could see it. Dark horse team, the Chargers. I mean, he'd be fun in Greg Roman's offense. I feel like they think they're set. I mean, I love adding Trey Harris, and they have Ladd McConkey, of course. The Jets, again, another guy that can carry the ball. I could see Aaron Glenn and company liking him. Could use another receiver. Do they want to spend that money on another receiver when they have to spend money on Garrett Wilson coming up, though? So probably not. And the Raiders could use someone else. These are more deeper dark horse. And the Steelers, far and away, stand out as that team for DJ Moore. If he's actually traded, I would actually think the Bears are open, unless their plan is DJ Moore and Odunze, or why did they draft Bird and then DJ Moore and Bird and then Odunze rotation? Then they would keep DJ Moore. But I think the future there is Odunze was a top pick a year ago for a reason. I know Ben Johnson didn't draft him, but point was when they drafted Burden, there is not enough snaps to go around for all these guys. Doesn't mean no snaps, but be interesting to see what the Bears do. Another receiver, Chris Olave. Now, I don't think the Saints want to trade Chris Olave. There was some rumors about Olave right when the Steelers traded George Pickens, to watch out for the Steelers on Olave. That was nothing for sure. Nothing, solid, kind of just some rumors. But Olave, very near future, is going to want an extension, and he's a tricky one to figure out how much he is worth right now. Can he stay healthy? I can't really label him with durability issues. It's not a constant problem. He is a guy that he can't take a bunch of hits at Ohio State. He kind of how Tyler Lockett plays a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. Save yourself long term. That's kind of what his play style needs to be. But, man, he's a separator. He's speedy. He's a home run type guy. He can track the ball very well. He's got big playability. We saw it right away when he came in the league. And he's very young, has a lot of upside. And it's just going to depend on what he's asking for. Even for if he is traded for the acquiring team, like, is he going to be an $18 million per year guy? I know the receiver market's going up. Like, right now, it feels like he should be there, but I could see him demanding a lot more than that, a lot more. And he does have upside, and he showed it, right? He shows he's talented. He shows he has upside. So could be interesting there. I'd say a second or a third. A second seems a little rich, given how much you got to pay him. He's proven to be good, but how much where is he at right now? So I'd say a second round pick. The Saints absolutely would not. I don't think they would accept a third, like a lone third. I think it would have to be a third plus. But a second round pick, well, maybe the Saints kind of giving up something like a day 3 pick as well. We talk about this, the Steelers were the rumors, and that could be the case here as well. That the Steelers could be the team. I would think maybe more in on DJ Moore. I think they'd be like worrying about how much we got to give this guy an extension. How much do we pay him? It's definitely possible. The Raiders, I thought, made a lot of sense. Chip Kelly offense. They have Myers. They have Besh. They have a couple other guys. They got to get better. And this feels like a guy that would really fit Geno Smith ball, because Geno Smith can sling it downfield. He actually needs more, more of a sideline separator, home run, tracking the ball downfield type guy. I don't really feel he's got guys that can do that. He doesn't have that sure thing there in the Raiders. And the Raiders this offseason, they trade for Geno Smith, but then other than that, it felt like their main focus, like, of course they want to win right now too, but their main focus is long-term, get some upside guys. Olave's part of that. And they have a lot of future cap. They made the most sense here. Steelers make a lot of sense. You can see the Cardinals as well. Another Ohio State receiver for Marvin Harrison Jr. there, but maybe they're a little bit of a wild card. Then the dark horses, Tennessee, they drafted a couple. They have Calvin Ridley, could definitely use one of the future. I could see him with Cam. Man, I could really see him with Cam Ward. I actually like the Titans. They did sign Tyler Lockett as well, though, but I really like that fit in Brian Callahan's offense. Broncos, Saints guy for Sean Payton. Are they dying to trade for a receiver and extend him right now? But you could see it. The Chargers, the Patriots, they do have Diggs, and they drafted Kyle Williams. They're kind of the same type of receiver. Diggs not going to be around forever. again, more dark horses, but the more I talk, yeah, Titans, Broncos do make some sense, but I really look at the Raiders and the Steelers as well. But again, it's a dark horse trade camp. There's some on this video that are a little more likely than a guy like Chris Olave, but you never know. There's always those. Remember when Tyreek Hill was traded, everybody was like, what in the hell? Like, we're trying to look for those right now. Colton Miller, speaking of the Raiders, and it came out just before the draft that Colton Miller wasn't participating and it was optional, practice, obviously. He wasn't participating because he wants an extension. Yeah, he needs a raise, I think, as well. He's fairly cheap this year. He's a really good, solid left tackle, and he's an extension. And then it came out the Raiders haven't even reached out to him yet. And I do think at the time people were making too big of a deal about it, like almost acting like this is the end of the offseason. Like, no, you have a whole summer after the draft here, and we still do. I mean, the Raiders might reach out, but we're sitting here, and it's kind of the same situation still. It's a guy that I would think needs a raise and definitely looking for an extension. He doesn't want to go out there and risk himself when he's going to get an extension, whether it's with the Raiders or not. So, and the Raiders they moved on from a lot of big-time players in free agency, or a few of them, and interesting strategy. So maybe they're just good, and they draft a lot of players. Maybe they're just good with moving on from it. It's definitely a possibility, but when you come across a really good, and he's not like super old or anything, really solid tackle, proven tackle that teams would be fine with paying him. Yes, you have to get him and give him a raise and pay him. Does that drop his value a little bit? Maybe a little bit, but it's rare to come across tackles like this. So I could see it being a second and a fourth, or a third, fourth, and something else would be, almost a steal there if it was a third and something. I'd say a firm second-round pick makes some sense, and I think teams would be all over that. I look at the Miami Dolphins. I guess the problem is they have been a little tight on cap and maybe a little bit on future cap. They are on future cap a little bit. So they're going to have to dish out some money to him now and the future. They move on from Jalen Ramsey. Guys like Tyreek Hill aren't going to be around forever. They can make it work. Maybe they like it's only they know. Maybe they like Patrick Paul a lot. They didn't really go find a replacement there. But, man, they surely can get better at that position. Just makes the most sense as a fit in that Mike McDaniel offense. I love that one. So I think the Dolphins really, really stand out here as that team to watch. And I think Colton Miller is a little more likely, definitely more likely to be traded than Chris Olave, maybe DJ Moore, maybe Kenneth Walker. Maybe he's the most likely thus far. I think the next guy is pretty likely for this video as well. Look at the Bears. Some talk about them adding a left tackle. There was some talk about them drafting Calvin Banks if he was there. And they have Braxton Jones, expiring deal, has some durability things. He hasn't been super great, but he could be better with this offense. I feel like the Bears feel like they're okay for this year, but looking out for the future, could see it. Right now, looking out, but getting them now to help them get better now and looking out for the future. And they're a team that's not afraid to make a trade, right? They've proven that before and with Ben Johnson. So totally could see the Bears as well. And the Browns could be looking for that guy of the future for sure. And they could pay him. They actually have some money coming in the future here, unlike recently. But problem is they have DeJuan Jones, who they like, and they did bring back Jack Conklin, who does have durability concerns. But if they moved on from Conklin, I would say maybe the Browns are the team to watch. Put DeJuan Jones back at right tackle, trade for Colton Miller, boom, But so they don't really need him today. They would get better. They don't really need him today. And they're a team that I feel like they got to worry about future. And Colton Miller can be part of the future. Maybe they just want younger guys. So I thought the Dolphins, number one, and the Bears maybe made a little bit more sense. And then dark horse teams, the Texans. The problem with them is they've added so much. They still need to get a lot better. But they signed Cam Robinson and they drafted Ursary. So that's kind of, you almost, do we even list the Texans? In the Jags, there were some rumors about them kind of sneakily adding a tackle going into the draft because they don't really, do they have Liam Cohen guys? Are these guys good enough? Are they the guys of the future? They do have two starters out there at Walker Little and Anton Harrison, but they could get better. It's a dark horse team. Again, I really like the Dolphins. The Bears make a lot of sense. And the Browns make some sense. So definitely a guy to watch. Eldon Jenkins, the Packers interior offense lineman, the most interesting one in this entire video, in my opinion, for several reasons. He's a very good offensive lineman that is very versatile. He's played pretty much every single position for the Green Bay Packers. Played left guard for them last year. He's been great. I thought he could have been a little better last year, but I still think very highly at any time he can be a Pro Bowl offensive lineman, no matter where he plays. But it's very interesting because, I mean, you can even go back to last year's draft. They draft Jordan Morgan, who was a really good tackle for Arizona, but because of the measurables, you think he's probably going to play guard. There's even some talk about him playing center. Injured his rookie year, but obviously the Packers, for them to draft him in the first round last year, they think highly of him. He can play somewhere, right? They sign Aaron Banks, left guard of the 49ers, to a huge contract. He is going to play guard. Like, he's not playing center. There's none of that. So that makes you go, well, Jenkins is going to play center probably, right? He's going to have to go back to center. And then they also draft this year, they draft Anthony Belton, who was a tackle from NC State. There's some talk about him being even better at guard. So it makes you go, they got all these guys that can play their position or a different position. So what's going to happen here? And then Jenkins recently looking for a contract extension, and the reason being, like, he's getting paid a decent amount of money looking at his contract. But and it came out that because the Packers want to play him at center, and he said it. They're going to play me at center. I don't want to be paid as a center, though. You're kind of dropping my future pay by me playing center. Like, if you get rid of me, like if they get rid of him when they're done with the 2 years left in his contract, teams are going to view him as a center, and they're going to pay him as such because that's what he's been playing. It hurts him. Or if the Packers pay him, they're going to pay him as a center. So it hurts him. And I completely understand that frustration there. So he wants the security right now. He wants that insurance right now. Pay me as what I am. I've been an important piece to you. I can play any position on the offensive line. Don't pay me as a center and a center only. Like, if you're going to pay me as a center, make me the highest paid center. I'm kind of assuming things there with that. It makes sense to me. It makes perfect sense. So I'm glad for him for sticking up there for himself on that because it makes a lot of sense. So the Packers are going to play him at center. They're a little thin on future cap. They definitely have ways to clear space. A lot of the contracts they give out are kind of front loaded with the guarantees. They're not locked in long term. So of course they can clear space, but are they wanting to, after all they're paying him for these next 2 years a decent amount, are they going to want to just throw a bunch of money at him, especially if he's playing center? And then they have Belton that could possibly play guard as a depth guy right away. And then Jordan Morgan. Remember, there was some talks about him possibly playing center when he was coming out. More likely guard or even tackle. But they have options. So do they want to pay him? Does he want to actually play if he doesn't have that security like he should have? So I'm starting to think like something could happen here, and a team could trade for him. They could trade for him, play him at guard if they need a guard, and you get a good player, and you can extend him as a guard. So value's a little tricky here. I almost want to say he's worth the second round pick. He was okay last year, good. I feel like he could be great. And then you have the whole thing. Do we have to extend him? What do we pay him? What are we playing him as? It's not that he's a versatile piece. It's not that big of a deal. So I'd say probably a third round pick. Not everyone's gonna be able to afford him either. A third round pick and something else. It could be a lone second. It could be a third and a fourth, third and a fifth. Maybe it could be a lone third, possibly. Maybe not worth it for the Packers at that point because he's been so important to them. I look at a few teams here. It was tough to underline one as my favorite. I like the Cardinals a lot. The Cardinals killed the draft in terms of defense. I mean, in general, I love their draft, but they load up that defense. And you still wonder about offense linemen, but you go, I guess they don't have to worry about tackle right now. Jonah Williams at right tackle. He's decent if he's out there. He's got one more left in his deal. Guard is where, one more spot, really, at that left guard spot is what they got to worry about. And man, if they plug in someone there and they add another receiver, I mean, that's starting to look like a really, really, really good roster. So I think they would be interested in a guy like that and a guy that can also play different spots if you absolutely need him to. Like if Jonah Williams goes down again, you can put him at right tackle. It makes a lot of sense. The Ravens make some sense. Are they a team to trade for somebody then dish them out a super big extension? I guess they did it with Roquan Smith. Usually they trade for guys and let them walk if they're on an expiring deal and get a compensatory pick. But man, the Ravens would be even better, and they're already, I think they're my top team going into this year. It's hard to say the Eagles aren't the top team right now, but I think it'd be a really good fit. The Raiders actually, they're fine, but they could actually use another guard. Kind of a bonus that he can play, different positions. Maybe they're a little bit of a wild card. And the Commanders, do they put Brandon Coleman at that left guard spot? I would like that, but you get even better with Jenkins there. You could put Coleman at right tackle. You could try him there if you want to, but he'd be depth because obviously they just drafted Connerly. So it depends on what they want to do, but they're not afraid to make that big splash trade. They get better with this. Dark horse teams, the Patriots could use another guy. They have some options now. The Niners, the Niners would be a legit landing spot, but can they afford him? That's kind of the problem. They let Aaron Banks go. Trading for Elgin Jenkins, is that? I don't know. Seahawks could use someone else more so. They kind of already have that guard that can play center now in Gray Zabel, but more so right guard. Bengals, I don't know if they would be able to pay him as they're trying to pay Trey Hendrickson. Texans could use them. These are more dark horses again. Really like the Cardinals and the Ravens. They really, really stand out. But a very intriguing, as you could tell by me explaining it, very intriguing possible trade candidate. Surprised he's not being talked about more as a legit trade candidate because the situation. So an interesting one there. Let me know in the comments your guys' thoughts on the guys I talked about, but other guys that could be surprise trade candidates that I didn't talk about. Maybe we can include in future videos, so I'd love to hear that. We still got a lot of good content rolling out, even though it's the summer, it's the offseason. It's never dead in the NFL. So I'm excited to keep rolling out with this content. A lot more planned. Follow us on X for even more. But that'll do it for this one. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.